Mario Kart World is a great game that Nintendo forces you to play their way. That's what I would always say whilst talking about Mario Kart World when it first came out. But how is it doing a whole year later? The main problem people have in Mario Kart World is the intermission tracks, and for good reason. I mean, just look at this. This is not Mario Kart, this is Straight Line Simulator. But they have actually fixed some of the worst offenders, those being some of the routes to and from Koopa Beach. The problem is, they also made it so we have to play a lot more intermissions when playing online, way back in the 1.1.2 update. All in all, they've made a couple of intermissions slightly better, after making it so we have to play them a lot more. But no one's actually going to play the updated ones anyway, since Koopa Beach is just not good. Another problem people had with the intermissions was the best strategy for them. Because almost all intermissions were long, with long stretches of off-road, bagging was almost always the best strategy on these tracks. And although the 1.6 update did make it so the shock is now a lot less common, often not showing up at all on the shorter intermissions, it also buffed the bullet bill quite a bit, and the infamous boomerang as well. This did help to nerf bagging quite a lot, and running can actually be a viable strategy now, so good job Nintendo! Back when the game was first revealed, the hype for the open world, and also for the first entirely new mainline Mario Kart in 11 years was crazy. But most of that has worn off by now, and the game is going to have to get better for people to continue buying and playing it. And the things that are going to encourage people to keep playing are content updates and DLC. Now, people have been asking for DLC since pretty much as soon as the game came out, which is just ridiculous. I mean, the only way that you could get DLC for a game that early is if they made it at the same time as the base game, then didn't release it alongside the rest of the game just so that they can make people pay extra for it. And Nintendo would never do that. Now, I think 1 year still isn't long enough for any substantial content update or paid DLC, especially since Nintendo have gone out and stated they want Mario Kart World to last for the lifetime of the Switch 2, similar to how 8 Deluxe was with the Switch 1. This means I don't think we'll get any new tracks and probably not any new characters anytime soon, not until maybe year 3 at the earliest. However, I think we could still get some smaller additions, such as more costumes for certain characters, Dicky and Pauline, sorry, had something in my throat there, and maybe even some new knockout tours using the already existing tracks as we draw closer to the end of World's second year. Whilst we're on the topic of smaller additions to the game, let's talk about the titular open world. It's about as empty as the intermissions. They really should add some more P-Switch missions. They also need to add a way to properly track the P-Switch missions, question mark panels, and Peach medallions. As of the 1.3 update, you can see the locations of the P-Switches and Peach medallions you've already obtained, but there's still no way of tracking the question mark panels, and no way of knowing how many of these collectibles you have left to get. Adding just like a counter to show the total amount of P-Switches and stuff there are really shouldn't be that hard. I mean, you don't even have to change the number as the player collects more, since the total always stays the same. This feature really should have been added in the game from the start, or at least added in the 1.3 update with the other changes. And as we're talking about the open world, we really do have to talk a bit more about just how empty it is. There's the 3 collectibles I mentioned earlier, the P-Switch missions, which can actually be quite fun, the question mark panels, which just give stickers to your vehicle which are barely visible, and the Peach medallions, which do the exact same as the question mark panels. There's also not many of these. Like, question mark panels can only ever be found on the actual tracks themselves, and for the others, there's just not much incentive to go out and find them. Other than collectibles, there's also pretty much nothing interesting in the open world. The tracks themselves are really cool. I mean, the player getting to explore the surrounding areas that you would only usually be able to see is great, but there's just not anything interesting other than the track. You don't even get to free roam in Rainbow Road, which is one of the more unique areas in the game. Now, I'm not asking for much, just some more building stuff. Maybe we put a little Toad Town somewhere so we have a more rural area that the Toads can live in. But that Fruit Shack and the solar panels from Gelato Beach near Peach Beach to reinforce the appearance of the Cataquacks. Chuck in the Kart Workshop as a place to customize how your karts look, and as a tie-in to the Mario movie. Okay, maybe I am asking for a lot, especially since we are talking about the Switch 2 this is going to have to run on. But like, still, this console is quite frankly a beast. Just look at some of the third-party games we're getting, like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and you can see that the console still holds up pretty well. So I'm sure that they can flesh out the open world without making the game look like Scarlet and Violet's cliffs and run as well as their windmills. How about we talk a bit more about some of the updates Nintendo have put out. The most recent major update was the 1.6 update. This one added the item adjustments I mentioned earlier, as well as adding Bob and Blast to battle mode. Problem is, That's the only extra mode they added. Battle mode is still seriously lacking, with only 3 modes now: Coin Hunters, Balloon Battle, and Bob and Blast. This choice really annoys me. Like, for one, they only added a single mode, but also, if you're only gonna add one mode, add something more interesting like Shine Thief and Renegade Roundup, because Bob and Blast is pretty much just a reskin of Balloon Battle. And to be fair, Mario Kart 8 for the Wii U only launched with Balloon Battle, but still, we kinda need some more battle modes. Speaking of things Mario Kart 8 didn't launch with, we still don't have 200cc. Lots of people think this will entirely change the open world, making traversing it and the routes between the tracks faster and less insufferable, but I personally think it won't be that game changing for the actual tracks and the online play. I mean, for one, most people don't even play 200cc. I mean, think about it. People who actually play the game a lot, and are good enough for the increased difficulty of 200cc, would be playing online pretty much all the time, so wouldn't get the benefits of it, since 150cc is what almost always comes up online. So then we're left with more casual gamers, who don't play online as much, and usually play with family and friends on local multiplayer, and who would likely find 200cc too difficult to handle. Don't get me wrong, 200cc would be great for the open world, and it will be better than the numbers suggest. Based on just the names of the engine class, 200cc shouldn't be much faster than 150, but in reality, 200 is actually as fast as a 415cc mode should be. It's just that it's more of a novelty than anything. It also seriously breaks track design, which is an even bigger problem for the open world, which technically has over 200 tracks, and some very technical shortcuts on some of them. 200cc would 100% make the open world and intermissions better, but it would also turn half the shortcuts in the game into accidental flight paths. Huh, what happened there? So far I've talked a lot about the intermissions and the open world, so I want to talk a bit more about the actual tracks themselves. They are fantastic. Even some of the least popular tracks like the aforementioned Koopa Troopa Beach have some nice, if small, shortcuts, like this Char Jump Cup near the start of the track. In fact, I don't think any of those tracks are truly bad, unless you count the Parking Lot Stadium, which is definitely bad. Of course, in a game with so many tracks, some are bound to be worse than others, so wait, hang on, hold up, that Odyssey Central reference doesn't really work, since I wouldn't exactly say there are so many tracks. But anyway, as I was saying, some tracks like KTB, Desert Hills and Mario Circuit aren't as good or as popular as the others, but they all do have some shortcuts and strategies for you to learn. And if you don't care about the gameplay for whatever psychotic reason, I at least do actually quite like the concept behind Mario Circuit being a combination of SNES MC 1, 2 and 3. They should have put in 4 as well, but it seems Nintendo is allergic to having SNES MC4 in a game after Super Circuit. Now that I've covered a bunch of what Nintendo have been doing with Mario Kart World in its first year, let's talk a bit about what the future could hold for us. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think we're going to get any substantial updates until around year 3 of the game, but there are still a lot of things Nintendo could, and definitely should, add in the new future. I think the easiest thing that they could add is some new costumes. We most importantly need them for DK and Pauline, who are currently the only characters to only have one costume. I could see this coming sometime in July, to line up with the 1 year anniversary of Donkey Kong Bonanza, since a lot of the costumes for them likely would be inspired from DKB. It would also be nice to get costumes for the NPC characters, even if it is just palette swaps, like giving us a green Cheep Cheep or a red Coin Coffer, both of which have already appeared in games, so we don't even have to think of the colours to change. I see this being less likely, since I feel if they wanted costumes for the NPC drivers, they probably would have had at least a couple of them in the game at launch, which I guess if you think about it, they have kinda done. I mean, Koopa and Shy Guy are just basic enemies, and they do have costumes. For Koopa, it's kinda an obligation for them to have it. Like, it would be nothing short of an injustice if they didn't give one of the original playable characters in Super Mario Kart any costumes. But for Shy Guy, there isn't as good as a reason to give them costumes, so maybe there is more of a chance than I first thought for NPC characters to get costumes. The second thing I think they have to add is some more battle modes. If I had to pick one to add, it would be Renegade Roundup, but we'd preferably get Shine Thief as well. Shine Runners would also be nice to get, but I feel like it will need a reskin so it doesn't intrude on Shine Thief's identity. For those of you who don't know, which to be fair could be a lot of you since it only ever appeared on Mario Kart DS, Shine Runners is a game mode where the goal is to be the last one standing, with every 30 seconds, the players with the least shines collected being eliminated. They could really just replace the shine with any other collectible, and it would still be pretty much exactly the same. Heck, knowing Nintendo, we could even get frickin' item ticket runners, where you have to make a microtransaction every time you want to pick up a ticket. Hopefully they won't do that, and they'll just replace the shines with cat shines, or the Odyssey moons, or something like that. Other than getting the old battle modes, they could also add a new one, and I actually have a pretty decent idea for it. Based on how much Mario Wonder stuff we're getting in different games, I'm thinking it's going to be something to do with the Wonder Flow if they do decide to add a new battle mode. My idea is some sort of a gauntlet race type thing, where you pick up Wonder Flowers to give other players disadvantages, like spawning a bunch of enemies. But then, if you have a Wonder Seed, you can choose to use it to get rid of one of the effects that you've been given. The aim of the game is to get to the end of the gauntlet first. It took them 9 months to add Bob and Blast, so I'm thinking it will take about that long to add more, but hopefully something closer to 6 months. If they do end up adding a brand new mode, then I can see us waiting at least a year if they want to get it out soon, or longer if they have a specific plan of when they want to drop it. The third and final content drop I think Nintendo have to add, excluding DLC, is 200cc. 200cc was added to Mario Kart 8 about a year after the game launched. So far it's been exactly a year since Mario Kart World launched. Now this is reasonable because of how much more they have to deal with compared to 8's 48 tracks, including the DLC that dropped at the same time. So factoring that in, we could have to wait for at least another year until it gets added. Either that or they'll add it tomorrow and this whole section would have been pointless. Speaking of DLC though, it is essential that it comes out eventually. That being said, it would be something very complicated to add while still preserving the open world. The most popular theory as to how it would work is adding a new island with 32 more tracks on it off the coast of the original. You see, the problem with the open world is that you can't just plonk in Yoshi's Circuit somewhere, because the routes will get in the way, so you have to think about where to put it, how to integrate it into the open world, and you also have to make the routes connecting it to all the already existing tracks. And if you want to make the DLC paid, only some people will experience it, which is a lot worse for Mario Kart World than for 8 Deluxe where they just let you play the DLC tracks online. There's also the problem that you can't plonk tracks like Waluigi Pinball anywhere without some serious terraforming, but that's a whole other conversation. So yeah, the DLC tracks will probably come on another island. This though comes with the problem of having to connect the two islands, which will probably come with more long, straight, boring water intermissions. Really, this will take a long time for Nintendo to not only come up with a way to make this work, but also to develop it and put it in the game. I'm thinking at least 4 more years, but we'll just have to wait and see. Also, quick shout out to Reddit user Virgo Vigilant, I hope I'm saying that right, who had the cool idea of having multiple islands released in waves to the DLC. I'll link their post down in the description below. In conclusion, 1 year after release, Mario Kart World is still a great game that Nintendo still forces you to play their way. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I've rushed quite a lot to get this out in time for Mario Kart World's 1 year anniversary, so I'll probably do an updated version of this a bit later down the line. But I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later.